Timta Hasa Anuki Maku Nubu Ayuna Sagar Maku Shil Atsakata Am Shil Yamasi Nuwabiana Wahaza Kalum Bi Upspu Kalum Chasadin Tamed. Greetings, I'm Chief Nanya-Shaabu of the Atsakata Nation of Yamasee Moors. This is Weekly Word 58. And to no surprise, earlier on, this happened on March 7th, which was Tuesday of this Gregorian week, Morehouse President ousted after letter slamming Trump. Now, for those of you who watched Weekly Word 57, he had criticized Trump, and we had pointed out that black has no standing at law. He was upset about the photo op that was done. He knew that before he even walked into the White House, and we said, how are you going to sit there and complain when black has no standing at law? So you obviously were following your directive to go to the White House, do a photo op for 2 days, then realize, hey, we didn't get anything. They're not advocating or allotting any funds for black HBCUs. No need to. Black has no standing at law. So what was interesting was it took 72 hours after we did Weekly Word 57 for him to be fired. Morehouse College President John Sylvanus Wilson is officially the former president of the HBCU 3 months earlier than anticipated, which would be, I guess, a breach of contract. I don't know. According to HBCU Digest. The move comes just days after Wilson penned a letter in reaction to his White House meeting with President Donald Trump and other HBCU presidents. In a letter from Morehouse Board Chairman Robert Davidson, William Taggart is named as the person in charge of day-to-day operations at Morehouse. So, this again goes to show and prove all these black educators, college educators, professors, PhDs, bachelors, principals, deans, all of them who call themselves black, no, they are not black. And they are following a program, they are following instructions, they have contracted as slaves, and part of the agreement and the terms of the contract is you can't tell the black students, whether they're elementary, kindergarten, post-secondary, secondary, college, university, bachelors, deans, what do they call it, scholars in waiting, you cannot tell the secret that black has no standing at law and you all are not black. They can't do that. You can't say you're black or African American. Both of those words mean you are a slave. The world gets this. Unfortunately, black people in the West don't get it, even though the U.S. government is admitting to it. So now the next story, which is amazing, the timing, of course, when this came out. Roger Taney, Dred Scott families reconcile 160 years after infamous Supreme Court decision. Now we're going to play the video here. And it's Tawny. That's how it's pronounced.
And we mentioned this in Weekly Word 57, that it's been 160 years since the Dred Scott decision.
And then what happens on Monday, they do a ceremony.
Yeah.
They do a ceremony.
Today with my wife, Carol Tawny, and my daughter, Kate Tawny Billingsley, to participate in a process of reconciliation with the Scott family, with Lynn Jackson, who's the great-granddaughter of Dred Scott. So the process of reconciliation has 3 parts. The first part is an apology to the injured party. The second part is forgiveness. The third part is a new foundation of trust that grows out of that.
Yes, and you forgot the fourth part. Check, compensation, and restitution. Because that damage was done in commerce. Slavery is about what? Commerce and a contract. So if you're apologizing, the Tawny family needs to cut a check.
And we offer our deep apology to the Scott family and to all African Americans to the injury caused by Roger Tawny and this decision.
Yes, but the thing is, again, there is an apology already done by the U.S. government. It's called House Joint Resolution 194. That's not talked about here. Then there's S-Con-Res 26, which is the U.S. Senate apology to African Americans for slavery. Then there's House Joint Resolution known as HJ3IH, which is the apology to Native Americans and American Indians, which again is not talked about in this apology, nor will it be talked about in any of these schools. So the point being that his apology to African Americans, that is a court issue. He cannot, and his family member who did it in the capacity as a public official. So he can apologize on the courthouse or outside the hall where the statue of his great-great-great-grandfather is, but the fact still remains Dred Scott is still on the commercial books. The U.S. Supreme Court has not gotten rid of Dred Scott. They have not overturned it, and they won't overturn it and should not overturn it because, as Barack Obama said, the word black has no standing at law. African American has no standing at law. So when Morehouse and the rest of the HBCU presidents went to meet with President Trump at the White House, which incidentally has a lien on it, as well as the lands that it sits on, that's Turtle Island. They already know this. They're not telling the students, so they are doing a disservice. They are also accessories to genocide. Yes, all HBCUs are accessories to genocide because Barack Obama told the secret, the fact, and gave the evidence that black has no standing at law. So let's finish up here.
Charlie, thank you. I want you to know on behalf of the Scott family and all those African Americans who have the love of God in their hearts, that we accept.
Okay, the love of God in their hearts. Remember, when you talk about slavery, you get the slave master's religion as a program to control you. For all those who have the love of God should have stopped slavery, but slavery is acknowledged and accepted by God in the Bible.
Such an apology. And I thank you for it. I thank you for the courage that you have and that Kate had. Come out and put yourselves out here and take this stand so that healing can begin.
Look at how his fingers are. Pay close attention to his fingers. Look at how he's got his hand, because when he spoke with the mic in his right hand and kept his left hand behind his back.
10 years ago, we started.
I'm going to tell the secret. When you see she's talking to him and he's standing there like that, that means everything she's saying to him is being blocked. That is a Masonic hand gesture.
Yep.
So he's sitting there and you can see he's not really having much in the way of movement. That's a Masonic hand gesture. So whatever she throws at him, it's hitting a fence.
Yep. And that Amorite girl beside him doesn't seem to be very engaged either.
The Heritage Foundation said, let the healing begin. And I really feel like a lot has happened, but this is the icing on the icing to have you.
Right? She said icing on the icing. She didn't say chocolate on the icing. She said icing on the icing. White power. Pay close attention. Icing is known as what color? White. This is the icing on the icing. You got to tell black and African American people, African Caribbean people, African Canadian people, they are not black, they are white according to Commerce.
And your family here. Yeah. Of course you can. Thank you.
Of course you can. You know you can.
So, Kate Tawny Billingsley grew up struggling with her family history. Feel sorry for the poor Caucasian girl. Her ancestor, Roger B. Taney, was the U.S. Supreme Court Chief Justice who wrote the Dred Scott decision issued March 6, 1857, that ruled Congress could not regulate slavery and that blacks could not be considered U.S. citizens. Still a fact. And just also, and notice what they do. In this video we just saw, underneath in this article, a judge declared a mistrial Monday in the murder case of Michael Slager, the South Carolina officer who killed Walter Scott. So right after this, Dred Scott, watch the programming, the hypnotism.
Yeah.
The judge declared a mistrial. So that means this officer who shot Walter Scott in South Carolina gets off.
Yeah.
Black has no standing at law.
And he's got the last name as Dred.
Who killed Walter Scott. So same thing. Blacks are not considered citizens. They are called civilitus mortuus, dead in the eyes of the law. When are the legal eagles going to start telling the black people these facts? Because it will shake up the whole judiciary, and the judiciary will crash because it's connected to the stock market. All you black and African American and African Canadian people better do your SF 181 and get white. White is the wave of the future. Come to the white side. She grew up hearing relatives debate a thorny question. Should the family apologize to Scott's descendants for the decision? What do you do with that kind of generational guilt, she asked. Billingsley, a New York actress and playwright, addressed her angst by writing a play on the matter and came to Annapolis on Monday, that's in Maryland, the 160th anniversary of the ruling. Why are you... Hold on, this is an anniversary. If it's supposed to be a bad decision, you don't celebrate the evil. So this is 160th anniversary of the improper, or they call it infamous ruling. They called it an anniversary. So again, look at the hypnotism, the programming, the conditioning. Black people accept the fact you are slaves as long as you call yourselves black. It's safer for you that way.
It is.
To enjoy one of its fruits as her father, Charles Tawny of Greenwich, Connecticut, apologized to Scott's great-great-granddaughter at the foot of a statue of Roger Taney that has stood on the Maryland State House grounds since 1872. So that is an image that, yes, the Dred Scott, Justice Taney, blacks are slaves, as long as they call themselves black. So Scott's descendant, Lynn Jackson of St. Louis, accepted the apology, thanked the Tawny family for their courage and grace in offering it, and gave her forgiveness as cameras clicked and an audience of several dozen applauded on a sunny, wind-swept day. Where's the check?
Yeah.
We ain't trying to hear, I'll accept an apology, a conditional apology, I will accept. Now you got to break bread. Compensate, because that was commerce that was involved in that. We ain't trying to hear, oh, apology, God forgive you. No, break bread. Break out your bank book, your trust accounts, break all of that out. That's that for that. So we've got that covered. So the timing again couldn't have been more astronomical or coincidental. Now to go back, because we know there's going to be people that are going to see this and are going to be upset that I did Weekly 58. I frankly don't care, because they're black people. I don't have to listen to you. The fact is, this is sanctioned by the IPEDS. The National Center for Education Statistics sanctions this. This is the category, and these are standards. This is a global standard. The categories do not denote scientific definitions of anthropological origins. The designations are used to categorize U.S. citizens, which are not black or African American people. They can't be, as per the Dred Scott, because it's not been overturned. And you notice that his descendant did not say my grandfather was wrong. He just said we apologize. So you didn't really step out there. Resident aliens and other eligible non-citizens. Black. A person having origins in any of the black racial groups of Africa. White. A person having origins in any of the original peoples of Europe, which is named after an Ethiopian princess, the Middle East, or North Africa. When we go to the U.S. Census, the U.S. Census says what? It has the same definitions, black or African American. Black means slave, African American means slave, and perpetual slave at that. That's why the world does not have to respect you, because you're calling yourself something that doesn't even exist even in science. A person having origins in any of the black racial groups of Africa. What does it say? The 1997 OMB standards permit the reporting of more than one race, period. An individual's response to the race question is based upon what? Self-identification. When we go back in the Census 2000, individuals were presented with the option to self-identify with more than one race. And this continued with the 2010 census. So those of you who have done your SF 181s and your boss, your contractor, your social worker is telling you you can't do it. The federal government said you can't. That's a violation of Title 18 U.S.C. Section 242, 241, as well as Title 18 U.S.C. Section 1091, which is the U.S. Domestic Code for Genocide. The last one is, what is race? Guidelines provided by the U.S. Office of Management and Budget, and these data are based on self-identification. Always self-identification. So you can self-identify as white. I self-identify as white and American Indian. Everyone I know self-identifies as white and American Indian because Barack Obama said what? Black has no standing at law. The president of Morehouse, he found out about it the hard way. The mistrial in South Carolina on the same day with the same article talking about the Dred Scott decision that was 160 years ago. Still the same thing. Nothing has changed. Stop calling yourselves Black, African American, African Canadian, African Caribbean. You are white and American Indian as far as commerce is concerned. Do not call yourselves that. Black, African American. Don't call yourself black. Black is whack. Black is crack. Black is a trap. Black and African American means you're a slave. Now, when Dred Scott's great-great-granddaughter talked about of those who have the love of God in their heart, there's a book here. We're going to have all the attachments as always. This is called The Religious Instruction of the Negroes in the United States. This was by Charles Colcock Jones, 1804 to 1863. This is around the same time as what? The Dred Scott decision. So nothing, this is instruction. This is programming for the Negroes. Now, chapter 4 deals with benefits, and it says, let us proceed to the more agreeable employment of showing the benefits which would flow from the religious instruction of the Negroes. There would be a better understanding of the relation of master and servant and of their reciprocal duties. Not much has been published in our country on the relation and duties of master and servant, and it seems strange that it should be so. And since that relation has existed so long and become so extensive, since so much involving private and public happiness depends upon the faithful discharge of the duties of it, not much inquiry and discussion in the way of conversation has been indulged in on the general subject, and not much preaching upon it from the pulpit. So when we go to the next headline, the pecuniary interests of masters will be advanced as a necessary consequence. So when the great-great-granddaughter of Dred Scott apologized to him and said, yes, I want to thank the Tawny family for stepping out, for all those who have God and have God in their heart, she was perpetuating leper supremacy right in front of everybody. Mm-hmm. At no point, because her family, Tawny's family, cannot compensate the Scott family. That whole thing is all orchestrated and a lie. They cannot compensate the Scott family because that came through the courts. If the Tawny family on their own volition wants to compensate Dred Scott, then they need to write up a document saying, we hereby, he never did that in the apology, did he? He didn't say, I have this document here to say our family is formally releasing the Dred Scott and the descendants of Dred Scott as slaves. He didn't do that. He's an advertising executive. He knows how to do business. He never did that.
And I thought it was the girl who was struggling with the decision, and was that her there on the steps, the Lynn girl?
That was her in the shades with the long black hair. She was the playwright.
So she wasn't very involved in the apology, so...
No, even though she wrote the play, she should have said something, but she had her father do it, because he's an advertising executive. The religious instruction of the Negroes will contribute to safety. The thing that hath been, it is that which may be. And although as a slaveholding country we are so situated that, so far as man can see the hope of success on the part of our laboring class, in any attempt at revolution is forlorn, yet no enemy, if there be an enemy, should be despised, however weak, and no danger unprovided for, however apparently remote. Success may not indeed crown any attempt, but much suffering may be the consequence both on the one part and on the other. It is then but a prudent foresight, a dictate of benevolence and of wisdom, to originate and set in operation means that may act as a check upon, if not a perfect preventive of evil, which means they want slavery to continue. I am a firm believer in the efficacy of sound religious instruction as a means to the end desired, and reasons may be given for that belief. They are to be discovered in the very nature and tendency of the gospel. Its nature is peace in the broadest and fullest extent of the word. Its tendency, even when its transforming influence upon character is not realized, is to soften down and curb the passions of man, to make him more respectful of another's interests and more solicitous of his favor, more obedient under authority and patient under injuries, and to enhance infinitely in his estimation the value of human life. That is the programming and the hypnotism black and African American people, or people the world over that call themselves black, are still under.
Yeah, talk about patience under injury, 160 years, and you just got a half apology.
The religious instruction of the Negroes will promote our own morality and religion. That the Negroes are intellectually and morally in a degraded state, I trust, will not be denied. And of course, no man acquainted with human nature will deny that constant connection and intercourse with a degraded people will exert a deleterious influence upon persons of more elevated character, if there be not some peculiar causes in existence or some special effort made to counteract it. I do not hesitate to say that the influence of the Negroes on the general intelligence and morality of the whites is not good. There are those who deny it. I differ with them, and I'm happy in believing that the majority of my fellow citizens are with me. We are so accustomed to sin in the Negroes, which in them appears a matter of course, that our sensibilities are blunted. Much unpleasant discipline will be saved to the churches, and then they say the souls of our servants will be saved here, but they ain't talking about heaven. All right, and then I will leave with this perfect, so in case anybody, and I'm sure they will be seeing this, are upset, here is an Amorite talking about the Dred Scott decision, of course, which was not talked about by the Tawny family.
The Dred Scott decision, which was handed down by the Supreme Court in 1857, is one of the most famous or infamous decisions in all of the history of the Supreme Court. And it arose out of some complicated issues, but what it basically had to do with was the power of Congress to prohibit slavery in the Western territories. Dred Scott had been brought as a slave into the territory of Wisconsin, where slavery had been barred by Congress. And later he sued for his freedom on the ground that he had been in a place where slavery had been abolished and therefore should be considered free. And this goes all the way up through various courts. And the Supreme Court eventually rules, no, Dred Scott's not free because two reasons. One, Congress does not have the right to prohibit slavery in the territories. And this basically declares the Republican Party unconstitutional. The Republican platform, Lincoln's platform, which is to prohibit slavery in the territories, the Supreme Court said you can't do that. Slavery has a right to go anywhere within the country in a territory, not a state. A state can abolish slavery. Illinois did. But the territories which...
That's why private prisons do so well.
Yeah.
Because when they get them in there, they are slaves.
belongs to the whole country. Slavery is a right to go there. The second principle put down by Chief Justice Tawny in the Dred Scott decision was that blacks cannot be citizens of the United States. In a sense, Dred Scott can't even sue because he's not an American. This is one of the best examples of this notion of blacks as aliens. Even though he's born here and everything, he is not an American. The American family, as Tawny says, is for white people. Okay.
America was originally defined as the copper-colored races. So if you want to get technical, call yourself copper or copper-colored. Black is not a nationality, it's not a race, it's not a language, it's not a culture, it's not an origin, it's not even a people. All of these, yet educated black people still call themselves black, when in fact we've already proven the government says they are white, and in certain cases American Indian, and in other cases Asian. So black is the trap to keep one in slavery. We're going to continue on.
And in the most famous sentence in that decision, he says, a black man has no rights which a white man is bound to respect. Now, he's not saying blacks can be killed with impunity. What he's saying is, legally speaking, they are not part of the body politic.
So therefore, since they're not part of the body politic, they can be killed because they don't have a right to sue for redress or sue for grievances or damages. Back to the video.
They are not part of the we the people that created the Constitution, and therefore they're just outside of the system. So they don't have any rights under the Constitution because the Constitution is for white people. Now people have denounced Tawny ever since for this, and for good reason, but the fact is this decision was codifying widely held views in American society, North and South.
And the world, and it still continues to this day, worldwide. When people look at you as black, they don't have to respect you, they don't have to listen to you, they don't have to feel empathy for you.
You're blaming the messenger in a sense if you simply hold the Chief Justice responsible for these views. But it's certainly the position that Congress could not stop the westward spread of slavery discredited the Supreme Court in the eyes of large numbers of Northerners, including Lincoln. Lincoln is denouncing them after this and saying, Lincoln, who was a law-abiding guy, says we don't have to recognize this decision. We're going to ignore it. It's a bad decision. And when the Republicans get in, we are not going to abide by the Dred Scott decision. So it shows you how far the sectional dispute has gotten that a guy like Lincoln will say the ruling of the Supreme Court can just be ignored because it's so, wrong-headed.
And nothing has changed. That's the public. Privately, it still goes on. Melaninites, you feel this. You experience it daily from your jobs. You experience going out, restaurants, social functions, shopping, everywhere. So this is what they call the hidden secret put out in plain sight. Nobody wants to talk about it. Your black intellectuals won't talk about it because they're bought and paid for. The Morehouse president, he found that out the hard way. When are you black intellectuals going to stop BSing around and tell the truth to tell these black students from college down to preschool that they are not black? As long as you all don't do it, you all are accessories to genocide. You are perpetuating what you call white supremacy, which is really, in fact, leper supremacy. So you all are accessories before, during, and after the fact, and participants in genocide. So with that, again, this proves, again, all you black people, the time is to get white. It's time to get white. It's time to get white. And thanks to the U.S. government, the Office of Personnel Management, the White House, the U.S. corporation, they have exposed and revealed as well as admitted that they are not white and the Melaninites are white. And with that, this is Weekly Word 58. Get white and get right. The time is to get white. Amun Ray, white power, white power, white power. Amun.